They laughed, but power was silently forming. Public humiliation destroys the weak and sharpens the powerful. What you do after embarrassment decides your future rank. Powerful people never react the way the crowd expects. Watch carefully. This is how authority survives disgrace. Powerful people pause during public humiliation because silence preserves authority, denies opponents emotional reward, creates uncertainty, and allows control to return naturally over time, eventually. They avoid immediate explanations, knowing defensive words amplify embarrassment, weaken perception, invite further attacks, and shift power towards the crowd watching closely in public moments. Humiliation is treated as a temporary incident, not identity, allowing recovery, strategic patience, emotional distance, and forward movement without internalized shame from hostile social environments. They maintain calm body language, steady voice, controlled expressions, because visual dominance reassures allies, discourages predators, and signals leadership under pressure during public scrutiny moments. Powerful individuals understand public memory is short, but recorded reactions last longer, shaping reputation long after embarrassment fades away in competitive social power structures environments. They observe carefully who laughs, who stays silent, and who supports, using humiliation to map loyalties and hidden rivalries accurately within their surrounding influence networks. Instead of correcting narratives immediately, they allow time and outcomes to quietly rewrite perceptions without public struggle through consistent behavior and visible, disciplined success patterns. They avoid excessive apologies. Understanding repeated regret signals weakness, reduces status, and encourages further disrespect from observers, especially during moments of heightened social attention pressure. Humiliation becomes fuel for self-discipline, sharper focus, and silent improvement, rather than emotional collapse or impulsive retaliation that damages future authority and credibility permanently. They continue daily routines unchanged, signaling stability, confidence, and inner order when chaos is expected by audiences seeking weakness during moments of exposure or crisis. Powerful people reduce speech after embarrassment, allowing silence to rebuild presence, weight, and perceived depth, while avoiding mistakes created by emotional over-explanation in public settings. They refuse self-mockery publicly, because humor rooted in weakness shrinks authority instead of restoring respect among peers, rivals, subordinates, and observing audiences broadly overall. They never seek sympathy. Recognizing sympathy lowers rank, while respect grows from control and restraint displayed consistently under pressure and public observation during critical moments. Dignity under attack forces even critics to hesitate, reconsider, and limit escalation because controlled presence disrupts expected emotional responses from hostile crowds, rivals, opponents publicly. Embarrassment becomes an emotional training ground, strengthening restraint, patience, and long-term strategic thinking necessary for leadership survival within competitive power hierarchies over time consistently. They delay confrontation, trusting achievements and results to deliver responses more powerfully than arguments when public emotions settle and attention shifts elsewhere naturally, strategically, decisively. Powerful minds separate ego from events, understanding humiliation is external, temporary, and informative, rather than a verdict on personal worth or capability, long-term, enduring, fixed. They refine strategy after embarrassment, becoming more calculated, disciplined, observant, and emotionally economical to prevent repetition and strengthen future positional advantage within complex power environments. Public humiliation reveals hierarchy dynamics, teaching awareness of visibility risks and timing required when operating near influence, authority, and reputation centers within society, leadership arenas. As Niccolò Machiavelli suggests, true power appears after disgrace, when self-control replaces impulse and disciplined patience restores dominance over public perception gradually, silently, completely.
Powerful individuals accept humiliation as inevitable at higher levels. Understanding visibility attracts attacks, tests composure, and prepares the mind for heavier pressure ahead later strategically. They avoid emotional revenge, knowing retaliation driven by anger satisfies opponents briefly but damages long-term leverage, positioning, credibility, and future negotiation power severely afterward. After embarrassment, powerful people simplify life, cutting noise, distractions, unnecessary speech, and impulsive decisions to regain internal order and strategic clarity quickly under pressure conditions. They understand control impresses observers more than confrontation, because restraint signals confidence, foresight, and dominance without risking further public loss of reputation, status, authority, standing. Powerful figures let critics speak freely, knowing excessive talk exposes insecurity, while calm presence quietly elevates status above the noise of public judgment cycles repeatedly. They rebuild influence privately, strengthening alliances, skills, resources, and positioning away from attention until strength becomes undeniable publicly again through consistent results, patience, discipline, maturity. Humiliation teaches timing, reminding powerful people not every battle deserves response, especially when silence multiplies opponent mistakes and reveals strategic openings. Leverage, patience, advantage later. They monitor their inner dialogue carefully, preventing self-blame from eroding confidence during recovery after public embarrassment, through disciplined thinking, perspective, resilience, self-control, training, practice. Powerful individuals accept embarrassment without self-pity. Understanding victim mentality invites further disrespect and prolonged weakness within competitive social power structures, environments, arenas, hierarchies, systems. They refine communication afterward, choosing fewer words, clearer intent, and stronger delivery to prevent misinterpretation during future high-pressure public interactions, conflicts, negotiations, debates, situations, moments. Powerful people resist overexposure after humiliation, knowing visibility without momentum increases vulnerability and invites criticism, mockery, attacks, instability, risk, erosion, credibility, authority, influence, standing, control. They focus on competence, not popularity, because skill eventually commands respect regardless of temporary embarrassment within competitive leadership environments, hierarchies, systems, arenas, structures, contexts, societies. Humiliation clarifies priorities, forcing powerful minds to invest energy only where influence compounds strategically, efficiently,
deliberately, patiently, sustainably, long-term, consistently, wisely, intelligently, carefully, repeatedly, effectively. They maintain composure online, understanding digital reactions, permanently archive weakness and emotional loss of control within public records, screenshots, memory, culture, platforms, networks, audiences, ecosystems. Powerful people internalize lessons quietly, avoiding public announcements of growth or change until results prove transformation, discipline, maturity, authority, competence, stability, resilience, control, strength, dominance. They treat humiliation as rehearsal, preparing psychologically for larger stages and higher stakes of leadership, power, influence, visibility, responsibility, pressure, consequence, scrutiny, conflict, competition, authority. Powerful individuals do not rush redemption. Understanding rushed recovery often backfires publicly through forced narratives, weak performances, mistakes, exposure, impatience, insecurity, instability, pressure, reactions, missteps. They allow opponents to underestimate them, using lowered expectations as strategic advantage for rebuilding, repositioning, surprise, leverage, momentum, success, authority, credibility, influence, power, dominance, control. Humiliation sharpens awareness of optics, teaching how perception shapes power independent of truth within public, social, political, organizational, leadership, competitive, hierarchical, systems, structures, environments, arenas. As Niccolò Machiavelli teaches, those who master themselves after disgrace eventually command others through calm, patience, and disciplined control rather than noise, emotion, impulse, reaction.
Powerful people understand humiliation strips illusions, forcing clarity about strengths, weaknesses, allies, and enemies within public and private power circles over time. They use embarrassment to rebuild identity deliberately, removing behaviors that invited disrespect and reinforcing traits that command authority naturally. Powerful individuals master emotional containment, never leaking anger, shame, or fear to observers waiting for signs of weakness. They accept isolation after humiliation, knowing solitude strengthens focus, while crowds confuse judgment and delay recovery. Humiliation teaches them the danger of visibility without leverage, reminding power grows silently before displaying publicly again. They stop explaining themselves to those already convinced against them, conserving energy for strategic rebuilding instead. Powerful people regain confidence through preparation, competence, and discipline, rather than reassurance from others. They understand respect returns gradually, requiring consistency, patience, and unbroken self-control across time. After embarrassment, they sharpen boundaries, limiting access to their presence, attention, and emotional space. Powerful individuals learn humiliation exposes emotional triggers, allowing future mastery over reactions and impulses. They resist bitterness, understanding resentment poisons judgment and weakens strategic thinking over time. Humiliation becomes a mirror,
revealing where ego exceeded ability and correction is required. They rebuild credibility quietly, stacking small wins until momentum becomes undeniable publicly. Powerful people stop seeking validation entirely, anchoring identity internally rather than socially. They treat public perception as weather, unpredictable, temporary, and never worth emotional surrender. Humiliation forces humility without submission, balancing confidence with realism and restraint. They understand dominance is psychological first, restored internally before visible externally. Powerful individuals wait for the right stage to reappear, not rushing visibility prematurely. They internalize lessons permanently, ensuring humiliation never repeats the same way again. As Niccolò Machiavelli implies, ultimate power belongs to those who survive disgrace silently, then return disciplined, controlled, and unstoppable.
Powerful people anticipate embarrassment as inevitable, preparing mentally to face criticism, mockery, or exposure, without losing focus, authority, or composure in public and private spheres alike. They never overreact, understanding impulsive responses give control to opponents, reveal weakness, and permanently affect social perception among observers, allies, and rivals. Humiliation teaches patience, showing when silence and timing outweigh words, allowing outcomes to work in favor of long-term power restoration. They convert public shame into motivation, using the experience to improve skills, strategy, discipline, influence, and leadership effectiveness, quietly and deliberately over time. Powerful individuals maintain visible poise under scrutiny, projecting calm, confidence, and self-command to observers, making embarrassment seem irrelevant or inconsequential. They avoid seeking sympathy, recognizing dependency lowers status, while autonomy, composure, and self-control raise authority naturally in all social environments. Humiliation helps them identify hidden enemies, opportunists, and fair-weather allies who reveal true intentions under pressure, enabling better strategic positioning. They limit public statements immediately after embarrassment, knowing every word can reinforce weakness or provide leverage to rivals and critics alike. Powerful people rebuild influence through actions, not explanations, demonstrating competence, consistency, and results that silence criticism without public argument or confrontation. They treat embarrassment as information, not judgment, learning about human behavior, social dynamics, and power structures through observation rather than reaction. They protect their reputation by controlling appearance, behavior, and messaging, ensuring observers perceive dignity, strength, and resilience rather than vulnerability. Powerful minds detach from emotion, understanding humiliation is external, temporary, and rarely defines character or ability when managed properly. They recover strategically, waiting for optimal timing to respond or act, maximizing impact while minimizing further exposure to public scrutiny or mockery. Humiliation sharpens strategic thinking, forcing powerful individuals to improve foresight, planning, and decision-making under pressure for future challenges. They embrace restraint, knowing visible calmness
signals authority, intelligence, and unshakable composure far more than impulsive retaliation ever could. Powerful people control narrative subtly, letting results, achievements, and behavior overwrite negative perceptions quietly over time, building undeniable credibility. They convert shame into preparation for future challenges, transforming public embarrassment into lessons that improve emotional, psychological, and social resilience permanently. They maintain dignity without arrogance, showing the ability to survive attacks without losing authority, inspiring respect from allies and caution in adversaries. Humiliation reinforces humility in leadership, reminding powerful people to balance confidence with awareness, patience, and discretion in public and private decisions. As Niccolò Machiavelli teaches, ultimate power manifests in those who survive disgrace silently, then return disciplined, strategic, and unstoppable in influence and authority.